Hello, hello. This is a video filmed to help your review for your Chapter 1 quiz. So we will go over concepts that are in Lesson 1 to Lesson 4 from Chapter 1. So I just pulled up an old test that I have. This will not be your test or your quiz problems, but I pulled up an old test that I had, and I thought we'd just try some of these problems out. So right here, we've got a picture, and I wanted to show you this because we haven't seen a picture like this yet, and it's, similar to what we have, what we've done, but it just looks a little bit different. So this right here is all on the same plane. So if you see a grid like this, just assume that they're all on the same plane unless directed otherwise, okay? So let's look at, I'm gonna let you take a look at this, see if you can do some of these problems, and then we will go over the answers together. So if you want to pause this and see if you can work out these 4 problems before I explain how we're gonna do it, then go ahead and do that, because that's a great way to test how well you know this material. So number 1, name the plane containing lines M and P. So if I take a look at my picture, I've got line M right here and line P right here. So the plane that contains both these lines, well, what am I going to call this? So there's a few options. One way is I could call it plane K, or I can use any 3 points that are not on the same line to name my plane. Remember, I can name a plane using 3 non-collinear points. So let's take a look at our answer options. Do I have the K as an option? No, I don't. So I think I'm going to have to use 3 non-collinear points as my possible answer. So immediately, this isn't going to work and this isn't going to work because those are points and lines. Those are not, I can't use those to name my plane. Okay, so let's look at C and D. So C is GFC. So GF, where's F? Is there an F here? I don't even see a point F. And C. So those are my options. And then JDB. JDB. Well, JDB are all on the same line. So I don't think my answer can be JDB. Now, I think this is maybe a typo. I think this should be F right here. Maybe my document is kind of blurry. So the only correct answer I could have would be GFC as my name for the plane. And this is kind of a tricky question because you could easily think, oh, my answer is JDB, but remember, if they're all on the same line, then I can't use that to name my plane. All right, number 2, what's another name for line M? So we've got line M right here, this one right there. What's another name for it? Well, remember, I can name my line using any 2 points on my line. So let's look at our answer options. So we have line JG. Well, there's J here and G here. Those aren't on the same line, so that's not going to work. Line DB. Well, there's no symbol showing you that it's a line. Remember, we want to show whether it's a segment or a line or array by putting these symbols above the letters. So DB is not going to be the best answer. Let's put this on hold. Line JB. So J and B are right here. So either of so line JB, that could work because I'm saying line right there, right? Explaining what that would be. And then I have JGB. So JGB. I don't know why I skipped that one and didn't do it. But that wouldn't work because G is on a different line. And plus I'm using 3 different letters to name my line when I only want to use 2. So that's not going to work. So I think the best answer would be D. Line JB. And how would we write that as using a symbol? Well, we would write it like this, right? J, B, like that. So that would be another good response for it. Number 3, name a line that contains point A. So I need to name a line that contains point A. Well, let's look at our options. Could we say DC? Would that work? DC, and that's a line, right? And there's a symbol, and a line continues out forever and ever. So I think that's a good answer. I think I would put that on hold. I might, that might be my answer. Let's check our other answers just in case something's better or there's another correct answer, or I don't know. We'll see if all of them are wrong. So K, well, K is the name of a plane, so that's not going to work. DB, remember we talked about how we want to see the symbol above the letters, so that's not going to work. And then M, line M is going this way, and that does not have A on it, so that's not going to work either. So I think my answer is A here. All right, name a point not contained on AD or FG. So FG is right here, and then AD is right here. So any points that are not on those two lines, I'm gonna use green here. So we've got FG right here and AD right here. So basically any points not on those two lines would be H, J, or B. So let's see what our answers would be. There's K, D, and A, and H. So H is our answer because that's the only one that's not on there. Okay, our last question. Which of these is not a way to refer to line BD? So let's look at where BD is. BD is right here. Now remember, we can use the letter on the side to name it, or we can use any 2 points on the line. So let's take a look at our answer options. Well, not a way, meaning 3 of these should be ways that I can name it, and 1 of them is not a way. So M is a way, that works, right? That works. And then line, let's see, line JD, does that work? J and D. Well, that works because that's, line JD, so that works down here. And then JB, so let's look, J and B. Well, that works because that's all on line BD, so that works. And then JDB. Well, remember, even though they're on the same line, we're not going to use 3 points to name a line. We're going to only use 2 points. So this is not a way to refer to a line. Okay, let's take a look at a few problems related to finding distance of lines and finding the midpoints and stuff. So before we get started with these 2 problems, I want you to just write out the equations see if you can remember the equations for finding the distance of a line. And there's 2 kinds, remember. There are horizontal lines, so lines on a number line. And then there are diagonal lines. And diagonal. So name the equations for these 2. Remember, a horizontal line would be like if I had 2, or let's see, the distance if I had points on a number line. So points on a number line, and I wanted to find the distance of it, right? Okay, diagonal line would be diagonal lines on a graph. So for horizontal, we're just finding the difference between the 2. Oh. The difference between the 2 points and putting them in an absolute value. Because remember, sometimes when we subtract them, we get a negative, but when we put it in an absolute value, it becomes a positive. So all our distances should be a positive number. Then our diagonal distance is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Okay, on your quiz, if you can name these equations by heart, you'll get extra credit. So I think I'm going to let you have a piece of paper out at the very, very beginning, and you'll write out the equations, you'll turn it in, and if you get those right, you get like a point or 2 extra credit on your quiz. Okay, so on top of that, we want to know how to find the midpoint. So for a midpoint, if it's a horizontal, so I'm going to draw a little line here because the top part's going to be horizontal. So if it's a horizontal midpoint, finding the middle of 2 points on a number line, trying to find that middle right there, right, on a number line, then that would just be adding your x values and then dividing by 2, adding the 2 points and dividing by 2. If it was a diagonal midpoint, the midpoint equals your x's added together, x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and your y's added together divided by 2. So basically like the average of the x's and the average of the y's. That's midpoint is also going to be an x and y value. It's a ordered pair on your graph. So let's take a look at these problems up top, okay? So number 18 says find the measurement of this segment. Okay, this one doesn't really apply to the equations we just looked at, but we can still work this out because we did do problems like this, right? So if I know that PR is 18.8 and RS is 13.7, what would the entire length of the entire segment PS be? Well, I know I can add those together to find that, right? So you can plug this in, 18.8 plus 13.7. And when you add those, I think it would be 32.5 C. All right, let's take a look at this problem here. The coordinates of the midpoint, M, and endpoint C of a segment are, M is -3, 1, and C is 1, 7. Find the coordinates of the other endpoint. Okay, so this one's a little bit challenging. It's kind of like one of those problems you did on your homework. Because this time they didn't give you the 2 endpoints and ask you to find the midpoint. They gave you one midpoint and one endpoint, and they're asking you to find the other endpoint. So, well, first of all, this is on a coordinate plane. It's on a graph. And so I'm going to have to use this equation because this is the equation that I use whenever I have problems relating to graphs because I have my x and y values. So this is the one I'm going to use. Now, in using this, because I'm given the midpoint, I am going to plug in my midpoint in the position where it says midpoint. I'm going to plug the midpoint in. And then because I only have one endpoint, I'm going to plug in what I know of x1 and y1. I'm going to leave the x2 and y2 as x and y. They're blank, and I don't know the answer to that. And then I'm going to work this problem out backwards with an algebraic equation. So let's try this out. My midpoint is -3, 1. So I'm going to write this as -3, 1 equals 1 plus x, because I don't know the other endpoint, divided by 2, and then 7 plus x divided by 2. So here's the challenge. Whenever I'm doing this, I kind of have to split up my equation where I have my x equaling my x values and then my y equaling my y values. So I'm going to split this up into 2 equations. It's really not too complicated. It's just we have to remember to split them up so it doesn't feel as complicated. So I've got -3 equals 1 plus x divided by 2. Over here I have 1 equals 7 plus x divided by 2. So now you can work these out. Now you can work these out as individual algebraic equations. I'm going to work that out here. You guys can pause and work it out. So mine multiply by 2, -6 equals 1 plus x, minus 1, minus 1, -7 equals x. And then here I've got times 2 on both sides, 2 equals 7 plus x minus 7 minus 7. So I have negative 5 equals x here. Okay, oh, that's actually not x. Oops, typo. That's a y. That should be a y. That should, everything here should be a y. This is all y. Okay. I'm probably not gonna re-film this video, so brace yourselves here. Sorry for the typo. It's been a long day. So let's plug this in. This x is negative 7 and my y is negative 5. So that's my answer. That would be my other endpoint. So if I graph this on a graph, I have an endpoint of 1, 7. Oh, not right there. It would be right here, 1, 7. And then I've got another endpoint that I just found at negative 7, negative 5. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is these are my endpoints. And then if you really wanted to kind of just double check, my midpoint that I was given was negative 3, 1. So it should be like, okay, my drawing's not going to be perfect, but it should be negative 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So it's like, oh, like right there. All right, so that looks like these are the same on both sides. Yeah, so you can graph to double check as well. All right, that was a tricky problem, but that you will have a problem like this on your test, so be careful. And then I don't think I have one of the distance, but I can make a video of that if you guys have questions over it. Be sure you know how to do all these types of problems, finding the horizontal distance, diagonal distance, midpoint on a number line and on a graph. And also, I'm going to give you a picture here, knowing how to name angles. So naming an angle by identifying the vertex, writing another name for an angle, using the points on it, and naming the sides of an angle. Those will all be types of questions you'll see on your quiz. So make sure you know how to do that. I am going to end my video here, and hopefully you guys have a good rest of your day, and hopefully that helped you a little bit with studying. All right, see you later.